Welcome to the bold analysis, ladies and gentlemen. Kenyans want solutions to their problems, and these solutions are actually lying with us. So it is upon us to decide. Today, there is this reaction from the Russian embassy that really shocked me. And it was their response to a letter of a joint statement by ambassadors and high commissioners in Kenya on demonstrations, because the international community had started reacting to the protests that have been going on in the country. I want to read to you what the joint statement by ambassadors. Then you see the reaction from the Russian embassy, because it is going to paint for us the picture here. We are saddened by the loss of life and concerned by high levels of violence, destruction, including the use of live rounds and the destruction of property during the recent demonstrations. We recognize the daily hardship faced by many Kenyans and urge all parties to table their concerns through a meaningful dialogue and resolve their differences peacefully to build the nation together, ensuring no further loss of life. We stand ready to support the parties in their efforts to find constructive and peaceful solutions. And then the Russian embassy in Kenya, which I want to believe is the position of Russia, says, if it is not interference in internal affairs, what is it? So they're simply saying that the ambassadors are interfering with the internal affairs. Of course, what is the responsibility of the embassies of other countries in this country, or in the host country? They actually advance the agenda of their home countries. And from this statement, it is very clear that one thing they are vouching for is end of protests and actually calling for peaceful, or rather for dialogue. Now, from this reaction, you can't look at it as bit of them talking about internal infiltration, interference with internal affairs. But from my end, it's a bit different, because it can also show clearly that someone wants to depict a picture that they're not interfering, and like what is happening in the country is good. If yesterday I analyzed in this podcast when I was still at home in the bowl that I said, if William Ruto cannot get solution here, if he's fighting with Uhuru Kenyatta, if it is true that Uhuru wants to topple him, then we need to find other solutions. We need to get military to give us a solution. I argued that point. And one of the reasons why I said it was because the leaders here, or William Ruto, has insisted that he do not want foreigners to come and mediate us here. He will not want a foreigner, or rather mediation from a foreign body, to come and mediate the process here. He wants everything to be handled in the country or through the parliamentary process. There have always been discussion. There have always been a discussion around it. And so we are alive to the fact that this is a clear sign that Russia could be having a stake, or it is one clear observation can make from here is there is a lot of international interest in whatever is happening in this country. And while we can think that is just narrowly look at it as Uhuru is fighting Ruto, or Raila is fighting Ruto, but there are a bit of international hands that are deeply rooted in the Kenyan crisis. Now, these ambassadors were majorly from the West. Russia is not having a good relationship with the West. And one of the things that has always been happening is when Russia was sanctioned, there was disruption on the flow of goods to the African continent. And partly the hunger and the hardships that Africa go through, or rather Kenya go through, is because of disruptions from the Russian war, because the flow of the grain, because Russia and Ukraine are the largest producers of the grain, of the cereals. The supply chain of the cereals to Kenya, or rather to other African countries, has been a problem, including fertilizer. But Kenya has been maneuvering ways to strike deals with Russia against, in the backdrop of sanctions coming from the West. So we've always found ourselves in the middle of that war by default, and clearly it is also clear that our administration, or UDA, has failed to have a clear, definite position on the Russian war. They've always been sitting at the fence that we just need peace, and now failing to apportion blame on either side. So it is very clear that Russia and the West have never been together. But in the Kenyan crisis, why they seem to be disturbed by the fact that maybe the West is infiltrating and wants to mediate for peace in the country. I just want to make 3 observations around to this. The Kenyan crisis has been weaponized. And it is weaponized to fight to settle some international scores. You know, this is what I'm saying. The West, the ambassadors that were speaking, majorly from the West, were actually saying that they are willing and they want to support a peace process. In the past, it is always reported in this country that the handshake between Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta had the blessings of the West, or rather it was largely supported by US. And so, the crisis that is in this country is putting William Ruto in a very precarious situation. And while some other friends of the country will see it as the solution is for the leaders to sit down, but Russia could be looking at country Kenya and laughing, saying, let it sink, so that when it gets into a humanitarian crisis, or rather when it gets into a crisis, we can support them. Probably it will be an avenue to make sure that they can bring in humanitarian aids, like in the supply of the grain. If Kenya undergoes through a problem, through such a crisis, and so economy is shut down, what does that mean? That means that we might not be productive even here as a country. And that we might look for Russia. Or even probably worst case scenario is if the crisis is to escalate, then there will be a demand for ammunition. And now that Russia is one of the producers of this, they will actually benefit. So I'm not very comfortable with that position they took by saying it's a bit of internal interference. I think as much as it meets the threshold of being called internal interference, but it's also true that in this country, in the past, we've always gotten solutions from other international friends. That is one interpretation. The other two here is, could be there is some intelligence that Raila is winning some favor from the West. And favor from the West in the sense that if Raila is getting a lot of favor from the West to checkmate Ruto, and they are seeing very well that because Ruto has not been so much stable in terms of his foreign policy, who he's working with, the West can actually support the bid for Raila to work with William Ruto and to come around William Ruto, and on that, clearly with an intention of kicking out the Russian interest. That's also it. It is also clear that there is a Raila fear that because the ambassadors are saying we want peace and find a way there's a dialogue of these two fellows can speak and agree on something, and someone doesn't want that agreement because of Raila factor. The Raila factor in governance can be a factor to kick out Russia. And that is why they are simply against a peace process. Lastly, this is in the form of a question. Are they beneficiaries of the Kenyan crisis that wants the situation to escalate? That's the question. Could it be that we have some people or some fellows that are benefiting or that wants to benefit from the Kenyan crisis, and that's why they will not want to hear of anything like a peace process? I have to be very honest here. This is our country. This is the country we are born. This is our children go to school. Everything we do here. So I don't think, even to the worst height of political aggression, there is any reason to sink into political anarchy. I don't think we really deserve that. It's not fair to all of us, because indeed we are all in agreement that the economy is struggling. Thank you. Kindly subscribe to our channel. I'm introducing 100 subscribers challenge. That is daily. Yes. Daily 100 subscribers challenge. By the way, I'm introducing that challenge. So we have a challenge of, we've always been doing challenge of supporting others. But here we want to do a challenge of 50 subscribers per day. Yes, 50 or 100. Yes, 100 subscribers per day, so that we can also increase our subscription. So what to do, just check out, confirm. Have you subscribed to our channel? Subscribe. I'll be checking, just finding out that the daily target, and also do shout outs to the new subscribers that are coming. Thank you, and may God bless you.